listening to Bob Marley when you ride is pretty spectacular. Oh man, I knew I'll have to make this video one day. I've been asked so many times about the differences between the Swims, the OpenRun Pro 2s, and this is something new to me, the OpenFit Airs. Now, I didn't get these originally because I was like, I didn't have a use case for these. OpenSwim Pros for me, with all my water sports, kind of made the most sense. And sound-wise, like I said in my previous video, the OpenRun Pro 2s are absolutely fantastic, and we'll dive into the differences in a second. Now, you've asked me loads of questions, both in the comment section, but also through my emails, on the differences and which sets you should get for your type of lifestyle thing, sport, whatever it is that you're doing. Now, I've been copying and pasting more or less the same answers, but then I decided, you know what, I'm gonna make a separate video on how these compare, what kind of use cases these are best for, but also I'll answer some of the questions that I never thought that were an issue until I actually came across them, so we'll dive into that in a second. Now, for full transparency, if you've seen my previous videos, you know that I pay for most of the gear myself, and all the reviews I've posted so far were basically on the back of my own money and my own personal experiences. Now, because I already own these two, but I never had the OpenFit Pros, which I've been asked, whoa, not OpenFit Pros, OpenFit Airs. There's too many pros being attached to pretty much every single product out there. OpenFit Airs, I've asked Shokz to send me a pair. And I said, this is not going to be a review, I'm just comparing them. So if you want an honest opinion on everything here, there's links below to my previous review videos. Having said that, like with all my videos, it doesn't really matter if I'm getting these sent in or not. If product is shit, I'll let you know, because I don't want you wasting your money, and I really don't like misadvertised products. Let's get into the differences. And I will start with the most obvious one, the OpenSwim Pros, because these are almost an OG tech that we've seen in the X-Trainers, as they used to be called, or the original OpenRun. Now, OpenSwims, when they came out, I absolutely adored them, because first of all, they were waterproof, and I could go kite surfing with them. And I tried different alternatives. I had the Sonys that were going into your ears, but the problem with them, if you've ever used these kind of headphones in the water, and it's like not exactly headphones, MP3 players. In a water environment, you know that as soon as the water gets into your ear canal, you can't hear anything, but also they had this tendency of popping off my head, and I've lost 3 pairs. This setup, where you put them on your head, there's zero chance of them coming off. And this is with me crashing in this way, or getting tumbled by the waves here. So if you're using them in a swimming pool, you'll be absolutely fine doing your flips when you're turning around. Now, in case of my swimming, if you've been here long enough, you know that I've got ripped shoulders, so when I'm swimming, it looks like I'm drowning. So I try to avoid swimming pools because I'm alerting every single lifeguard out there. However, I did have them in a swimming pool, and they sound just as great when I was getting pumped by the waves. Oddly enough, when you're submerged, they actually sound better. Now, with any bone-conducting headphones, there's 2 things you need to know. First of all, they obviously don't go into your ears, so they sit just in front of them, vibrating, and those vibrations are carrying sound. One of the big questions I've been asked over and over again, even though it's in every maybe 3rd comment under my OpenSwim Pros review, is whether these work with, say, your Apple Watch or your phone when it's on the side of the swimming pool, and the answer is it really depends. If you've got a phone by the swimming pool and your Bluetooth signal is strong enough and you don't submerge your head, then yeah, it will still stream music. But if you're using your watch and you're taking a stroke, your hand goes under the water and you'll lose that connection immediately. It has nothing to do with Shokz or Suunto that I reviewed previously. It's just the limitations of the Bluetooth signal. That's why the OpenSwim Pros give you 2 options. You've got a Bluetooth, but you also got the MP3 system that you can just upload all your tracks onto the headphones, and well, Bob's your uncle. And I have been asked this so many times, do they vibrate more or less than other bone-conducting headphones? And the answer is yeah, it's the same. Like the tech, you can't jump over that. This is just something that they do. This is how they transfer sound, and they do massage your head, and the louder they get, the stronger the vibrations are. Now, depending on how sensitive you are to these things, you might consider getting a pair of these guys. So these are a combination of both bone conducting but also air conduction. If you look closely here on the bottom, there's little speakers that push the sound by compressing air thing into your ears. So this is kind of at the best of both techs, so you can still hear what's going on around you, but with the OpenRun Pro 2s, you also get less of that head massage that some people might just find annoying. I found these absolutely fine, but I only use them in the water. I don't really run in these. If I'm going running, I use my OpenRun Pro 2s purely because these sound better. And this is the major difference. Because that question was asked over and over again, whether these sound more or less the same, and they don't. The OpenRun Pro 2s, purely because of those speakers, sound clearer. And whether it's podcasts or music, they will just carry the sound much better. They're not much louder than the OpenSwim Pros or the original OpenRun Pro or standard ones, but they are cleaner and you get way more bass. And the reason for that is you can't get more bass out of these guys without vibrating more, and then that brings us to the same issue of these massaging your head and annoying some people, at least some of you, to some extent. The major selling point for these type of headphones is the fact that they stay on your head. And this is exactly the same as with the OpenSwim Pros. They will not come off no matter what you do. So if you're doing gym work, you're doing your running, cycling, skiing in this case, which they were an absolute bliss on the slopes in the Alps last week. I love doing stuff with the music, and I know some people will say you should be enjoying the nature. I'm enjoying the nature by having a little bit of a confidence boost or chill boost. In this case, with Marley was just so sweet on the greens when you're just coming down. And yeah, they fit nicely under the helmet, open face helmet. And this is where these guys are coming in. The OpenFit Air, they don't go around your head, so they don't feel maybe as secure. So even though they sit like this, I haven't managed to lose them. And they also fit under your full face helmet. So if you're doing mountain biking, this is a bet. I'm growing hair for a bet. It's like absolutely annoying. I don't know how they hold up in a very extreme scenarios, but if I'm doing anything extreme, I always have my helmet on, and the helmet basically holds them in place. And this is the important thing that I found about all of them, actually. If you've got a helmet or a cap or a beanie on, they sound much better because that kind of isolates all the outer sounds, and they will give you much better sound if you're having some kind of a headwear. They're all open headphones, so that means two things. First of all, you can hear your environment. So if you're running on a busy road, you're cycling, you're skiing on a busy slopes, you can still hear what's going on around you. So therefore, they're not the loudest, but also they don't give you the same sound quality as you would get, say, from Apple AirPods Pros or Bose headphones or Sennheisers. This is not why they were created. The reason for their existence is for you to stay safe when you're doing your sports. But also if you're around the house and you've got kids running around, and if I'm listening to music or if I'm watching something, and I know my kids are up to no good, I use these because I can actually hear what's going on in addition to listening to my tunes. The other question I've been asked quite a few times is how do you manage different folders on the OpenSwim Pros? And this is something very weird to me, that Shokz removed one functionality we had in the original OpenSwims, which was being able to jump between the folders, because obviously you've got different playlists for your running than for your swimming. And sadly, there's no option with these. There's no combination of buttons you can press. So the workaround this is that you set them to shuffle and you just wait, probably jump between 2 or 3 different tracks, and every second or third track will be from a different folder, and then just change them back to normal play mode, which I appreciate isn't ideal, but that's the only workaround I've managed to find on the internet. It's actually one of you guys who suggested that in the comments, so massive kudos, thanks for that, really appreciate it. With the sound quality in mind, I would say it's between the OpenFit Air and the OpenRun Pro 2s. These are a little bit louder, not by massive margin. They're not so loud that you can damage your hearing or you can't listen to the stuff that's going around you, but you can feel that these pack a little bit of extra punch. These are, I would say, very close second. They sound really good for a combination of the bone conduction and the air conduction. But if you really want something louder, this is the way to go. The downside to these, at least for me, is that they're just not as secure around your ears. Now, Even with me running like Phoebe from Friends, these never fall out of my ears, and I've been using them for a month now, so it's really up to you whether you find that as an issue or not. However, there's a little bit of caveat in terms of controls when it comes to the OpenFit Airs and OpenRun or OpenSwims, is that these have no physical buttons. Everything is operated by touch. I'm not the biggest fan of touch controls. I really don't like the new cards not having knobs and buttons because it just makes more sense. And I really love the way that Shokz solved that on pretty much all their other headphones. And I appreciate why they don't have them, because they wanted to keep them as light as possible, which they absolutely achieved, because once you have them on your head, you can't really tell that they're there. Thankfully, all these controls can be customized in the app, which is very straightforward. There's no gimmicks. You go straight into your settings and you can assign different gestures to different actions. And since we're on the app front, we can change equalizer settings on all of these. And I suggest having a boost setup on both the OpenRun Pro 2s and the OpenFits, because they just sound better. And for some reasons, as I've mentioned on my previous video on the OpenSwim Pros, they just sound better if they're in the standard mode than the swim mode, even when you're swimming. And correct me if I'm wrong, this might be just down to my personal case. They just work better in that setup. One of the other questions I've been asked is if you can use these wearing glasses. And it kind of feels obvious, but yeah, you can. And I do wear glasses. These are not fake prop glasses. I use them with my glasses on, and they just stay on just as well as without them. Same with the OpenFit, and I hope that clears it. No problems whatsoever. I think that one of the massive advantages of these is that you don't actually feel them on your head. There is no clamping force, and yet they'll stay in place, which for a lot of people might be a deal breaker. I know quite a few of you who can't really stand having full headphones on because they feel like they're squishing your skull, and some people are sensitive to this. So with these ones, there's no such thing. One of the many questions I've been asked is whether you can use these as your everyday headphones. And I think it totally depends on what do you expect of your everyday headphones, because if it's sound quality you're after, something like the Bose QCs would be a better choice, or Sennheiser or Sony. I'm not judging, I just like the sound coming out of these cans. For mixing, I use the T770s because I've been using them forever, and I know they produce the most accurate sound. Where I use these headphones is when I'm outdoors and when I need headphones that are A-robust. B, they'll stay always on my head, and C, at least in my case, these are my main workhorses because I'm typically in the water. I like cycling with headphones on, so that's when these guys come in, but if I'm in a full face helmet, typically I'm in a scenario where I really don't want to listen to the music. I want to make sure that someone behind me isn't smashing the brakes really hard. So even though I said that these guys are spot on for using full face helmet, I'm a little bit apprehensive about using them on big, busy trails. Speaking of different usages, these have totally different waterproof ratings. So obviously, starting with the OpenSwim Pros, you get IP68 certification. Basically means you can use them in the water and under the water, and I can testify they survived loads of abuse while kitesurfing in salty waters, which, you know, salt and any kind of metal doesn't really like each other, especially with electronics, and I've put easily over 100 hours on these guys, and they're still going strong. Not saying that these are unbreakable, but so far I am super impressed with them. Now, the OpenRun Pro 2s are a slightly different story, so they're IP55 certified. Now, what the website says, and I need to read that, it says that they are protected against low-pressure water splashes and dust. I've made them really wet, like really, really wet. It was massive rain cloud that came through. I got absolutely soaked. Didn't do anything to the headphones. I wouldn't recommend obviously swimming in these, but what I'm saying is that they can survive quite a bit of weather changes. And if you live in a place like Scotland or Vancouver, you know what I'm talking about. You need something that will survive those massive showers. These did very well. Now, the OpenFit Air. Now, these are certified as IP54. Now, that seems like a step down from the OpenRun Pro 2s, but it's still a reasonable level of water protection. So again, if you get caught out in the rain, you'll be absolutely fine. However, just remember to keep the case safe because that's completely not waterproof, so you might fry your little charging case. Charging case is quite crucial here because these only last about 6 hours on the full charge. The case charges them up within an hour to full. However, after just 10 minutes, you're getting 2 hours of listening time, which is pretty cool. For comparison, the OpenSwim Pros after 10 minutes give you 3 hours of usage, and the OpenRun Pro 2s gives you 2.5 hours. The battery life goes the other way around. So you get 12 hours on the OpenRun Pro 2s, you get 9 hours with the Bluetooth or 6 hours with the MP3 on the OpenSwim Pros, and OpenFit Air, as I mentioned, you get 6 hours of listening time on a single charge. Take these stats with a pinch of salt because they are made with the assumption that you're gonna listening to the music in about 60% or 50% of volume, which realistically, if you're cranking them up, deduct about an hour to hour and a half from each of these stats. So the way I see this lineup is that if you're on a budget and you need just an overall kind of a sport headphones that you take to the gym, that you use light running, and you just want something that makes you aware of your surroundings, the OpenFit are absolutely brilliant. Also, they come the cheapest at $119, which I think is a fair bargain for really good quality headphones. Also, from at least my experience, they kind of feel and sound the best out of the three. If you do a lot of running, the OpenRun Pro 2s are absolutely fantastic. And if you've got the older model that only uses bone conduction and you want extra boost in sound quality, they did really well. And especially since I've been using these back to back in different scenarios, obviously, I can really appreciate how much better those OpenRun Pro 2s sound. Now, the downside obviously here is that they are a little bit less robust than just the standard bone conductions, purely because they've got speakers in, so if you get water involved, they might get screwed up. Also, as I'm recording this video, these guys are on sale right now at, I believe, $139, which I think these are an absolute bargain at that price especially. Now, if you're like me and you spend a lot of time in the water, or you're one of those crazy triathlonists, these are a no-brainer. I mean, I had the previous edition of these and I've been only using them with the MP3, which I'm doing the same with these, to be fair. I don't see an option of me hooking up Bluetooth to this because I know that whether it is kite surfing or surfing, I'll be ending up underwater and basically the Bluetooth signal is just gonna get cut off. Now, the difference between these and your standard OpenSwims is the ability to connect through Bluetooth. So if you want one set of headphones that do everything in the water and outside, when you're running, when you're cycling, these are an absolute gold. And as always, if you have any questions about any of these headphones, drop them in the comments below and I'll get back to you. And yeah, that's all from me. Have an awesome day.